Welcome to K-12 Tech Insights podcast. This is a show where me, Suma EP from Niswey, and
Adarsh from Hubspot.
we get together to talk to K-12 leaders in India. And we get to talk about what they're doing in their schools to get the enrollment edge. And today, our special guest is Abhishek Mishra, who's the head of admissions at Vidyashilp Education Group. Abhishek has spent his career helping schools tell their stories and connect with families in meaningful ways. His journey is deeply rooted in education, growing up across Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, and Jharkhand. He completed every major academic milestone in a different state, class 10 in Madhya Pradesh, class 12 in Jharkhand, graduation from Uttar Pradesh, and MBA from Maharashtra, before beginning his professional journey in Rajasthan. Curious about human behavior and psychology, Abhishek started his career in banking and financial services. But in 2011, he pivoted to education, a space that felt natural, coming from an all-teachers family. After working in higher education for a few years, he moved to the K-12 sector, where he has spent over a decade contributing extensively to admissions, marketing, operations, expansion, and revenue management for major players. His career also spans real estate, having worked with a diversified group with interests in Sri Lanka and Mumbai. Today, as the admissions lead at Vidyashilp Education Group, Abhishek combines his varied experiences to craft strategies that empower families with meaningful educational choices and help schools achieve their fullest potential. Welcome, Abhishek.
Thank you so much, Suma, for inviting me for the podcast. Thanks so much, Adarsh, for having me here. It's such a pleasure meeting both of you and talking about the journey that I have had in the K-12 space and in general along the 17, 18 years of my career that I spent understanding the human psychology, the sales behavior, the buying behavior, so on and so forth. I'm very happy to be here.
Awesome, Abhishek. While me and Suma know you well, for our audience, could you probably give a intro about what you do at Vidyashilp and what does Vidyashilp do actually?
Absolutely, Adarsh. I currently head the admissions at Vidyashilp Education Group. Vidyashilp Education Group is a diversified education entity which has Vidyashilp University, Vidyashilp Academy, Vidyashilp Schools, Vidyasagar Preschools, and Vidya Nivas PU College. So all these entities have been shaping the lives of students across various entities and various courses that they offer. For the past 40 years, Vidyashilp Education Group has been nurturing students and making them ready for the 21st century's world. But at the same point of time, what we believed when we started is that it's not that we are making test takers. We are preparing the kids who are curious, who are confident, but at the same point of time they are compassionate. So these are the 3 C's which form the very core of our values at the heart of VACG.
That is amazing. How long have you been associated with Vidyashilp now?
It's been a, I would say, short journey at this point of time. I've joined the group in January, but at the same point of time, I would say that it feels that it's been ages that I have been working here because the values and the ethos that the group brings, it feels so connected and it feels so assured that you are at the right place with the right set of people, giving the correct direction to the entire group.
And I think even Vidyashilp is really benefiting from the vast experience that you gathered. Tell us more about your background and where you studied. And Suma did introduce us to a brief introduction about how you've navigated your education phases. Just for the audience awareness, can you take us through that journey? Very curious to hear.
Absolutely.
I do also hear the all teachers part, the teachers bits that is coming to your background.
Awesome.
On a lighter note, what I always said or what I always shared with my friends is that it was a kind of a 14-year vanvas because I studied in the same school where my parents taught for 14 years, right from the KG till grade 12th. And so I was always directly under the radar of my parents as well as the teachers who I was, who were teaching me in the school. But I think it's a fabulous journey. I come from an all teachers family. My parents were teachers. Everyone in my maternal side and the paternal side were involved into the education. My elder brother is a teacher. My elder sister is also a teacher. Somehow I was always passionate about teaching, but I would say fate, destiny had something else written. And eventually I pivoted to the same domain. I started, I would say, my education in Madhya Pradesh, where as a small kid growing in a population where everyone knew everyone, it was a small township. And surroundings gave us so much of freedom to explore, while we were growing up, while we played, while we interacted with the elders. I think that is where learning became very, very close to my heart. Even today I try and see people and try to observe people and learn anything that I could learn from them, irrespective of whether it is education, or whether they are making a dish, or whether they are doing something extra ordinary while they are giving a presentation, or just talking. So that's what the journey has been. Because my parents were in a transferable job, I kept moving from one location to the other. So, and that's why my journey till grade 10th was in MP, but then eventually I moved to Bihar. And then in front of me, in front of everyone's eyes, basically Jharkhand as a state was formed. So while yesterday I was in Bihar, today I was a part of Jharkhand. And that's how I basically say that I was in Bihar, but then I passed out my grade 12th from Jharkhand. Banaras Hindu University is something that was in the family, in the genes, and that became a natural choice. I basically moved there. In between, I also wrote my National Defense Academy exams and was not recommended. Eventually, I came to 4 SSB Bangalore, Cubbon Road, and that's how, Bangalore has been close to me. And as they say, life takes a full circle. Today, I'm in Bangalore recording this podcast about my life's journey and how I have grown. Post my graduation, I moved to Pune to complete my MBA, and then my first job landed me in Jaipur, and that's where the corporate journey started. Banking financial services was something that taught me about the human psyche, the buying behavior. Why would people trust you, especially with their money, hard-earned money? And then how do you basically earn somebody's trust as well as respect, while making sure that their money grows as per their expectation. So that was something that made me realize that trust is the ultimate, factor that would eventually make every career or every milestone in your life very, very important. And I have made it a point that even today, I make sure that if I commit something, I try and live up to the expectations of the people.
Amazing. You're giving us life lessons, Abhishek, to be honest. I can pick up a couple of points which will be useful for all of us. The least amount of resistance to change, I think you got to experience that when you mentioned all those sudden changes in your life, but you kept on moving. I think that's a great lesson. I think even before that, you touched upon being curious and learning from everything. So everybody is a student for life. And that is, I
Absolutely.
think, it's amazing to pick up. Suma, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think especially when they are, when you are a leader in the K-12 space, I think everybody requires to be a learner. It is changing rapidly. Students are, being faced with all sorts of challenges right now, which we didn't have when we were growing up. They have it tougher. And if you and the entire teaching community in your, education group doesn't, they have to keep learning and learn at a really fast rate right now. And that's kind of a non-negotiable now. Earlier, it used to be you're a learner for life, but now, there is no other choice but to do that. So, what are the changes you're seeing in the K-12 space, industry-wise, tech-wise? What are the changes you're seeing?
I think that's a very obvious question, valid question, because we see that a lot has changed over decades, and over the last 5 years post COVID, how transformational education has become in terms of the use of technology, in terms of use of all the gadgets and the gizmos, and more importantly, it has become personalized. The way the expectation of the parents has changed. Now, if I talk about from an industry perspective, I would say that the parents today have, or rather, I would say that the schools today have become from a center of academic delivery to a center of experimentation, or rather, parents want to experience more. And the schools today have become center of experience. What the parents today are looking for is a place which obviously needs to have academic rigor, but at the same point of time, is it shaping their kids, in the right direction, giving them the correct values and the ethos, and also preparing them for the VUCA world, the 21st century world, where things are basically not very clear. One day the world is here, and the next day the world completely changes. We saw how COVID basically pushed schools to the limit that within a night they had to basically move from a non-tech background to a complete tech background, where classes were online, data was utilized and shared and analyzed and given to the parents so they could understand what is it that the kids are learning. But at the same point of time, there was connect that was mutual, that was the parents supported, kids supported, and the school fraternity supported. All of it happened together, which also means that the difficult times will, while they it will push you, it will also make sure that it pushes you in the right direction and people actually take the correct steps. Had it not been for COVID, I don't think so much of involvement of tech in the space would be seen anywhere in the near future. It probably would have taken a decade or so, but I think it moved so rapidly that people were bound to take that step. And education comes as a necessity. It is not something that you can avoid. A parent can avoid. I'm a parent. I'm sure you people are parents, and it's not something that can be avoided. It would have happened with you also, that during the COVID, probably kids were in front of a laptop or a computer. So that's how it has changed from a business, from a industry perspective. From a parent's perspective, they have become more selective. They do more research than we probably expect them to do, and they are more prepared than the schools expected them. They are prepared yesterday. They are prepared yesterday actually, and they would get prepared tomorrow. But that's not the case. Today's parents are, whether they are in their late 20s, early 30s, or mid 40s. I think they are doing more of research when they are exploring any educational entity. They're checking if there is a value proposition that is correct and the ethos are matching. The personal ethos, it could be, the other aspects of life that match. And that is what I think the parents are currently doing. Earlier, it was more of academic rigor. The results, is my child participating in some co-curricular activity or not? But it is more than that today.
That's amazing. I think those were the days when not just education industry, but literally every industry in India transformed to become a tech first vertical or an industry. And the new normal was everybody had to adopt and lean onto the tech side. We at HubSpot also, we found our customers really going digital first. And what that did was suddenly the addressable markets changed for everybody. It was for some, it was more geo-based, locally prominent, but suddenly the world became a marketplace because now with tech and digital automation, your reach increased, and people who you thought first in the before COVID, whom you thought they were not your personas or not your potential customers, suddenly they started to discover you, and everybody had this a global outlook to their business, and the world became a smaller place, isn't it?
If you look at the number of, we're doing a podcast, and if you look at the number of podcast channels that started post COVID, the number of YouTube channels that started post COVID and during the COVID, those are, I think, the numbers that amaze you and that tell you that technology can psyche human behavior and the way we generally operate, I would say.
Yeah. And you really touched upon a nice thing here, because content became so much. Somebody told me that in the last 2 years we have consumed content as a mankind, which we haven't for the rest of the years before that. So the enormity of content sometimes drives you to be more evaluating it with a finer lens. We bring in a lot of tools. AI is here. The ability to pick up insights from structured and unstructured data is here. There are so much of innovations that are happening. How does that translate to, let's say, admissions in K-12? Like, now we spoke about you having the play across the globe, so many people being engaged, they're consuming your content. You don't know who's reading about you as close as you want them to be known. How do you see the trends in admissions in K-12 given these circumstances?
I would touch base couple of points on this. One obviously would be from a visibility factor, from a marketing angle. 2013, 14 is where digital marketing started to have greater acceptance across educational entities, so to say. And that is where, the adoption rate was very high. But what I believed was that even before COVID hit, people still in the educational space believe that we need to do all kinds of outdoor visibility as well, all kinds of events and all kinds of reach out and activities were more in use. I have personally observed that post COVID, what has happened is, yes, technology has taken a giant leap. Digital marketing has gone to the next step. Use of AI in digital marketing also getting is also getting introduced and being used widely now. But I personally believe that marketing from the traditional methodology, it has moved to a very, very unique methodology where I am not actually relying on any kind of outdoor visibility. The dependence on those are still there, but it has reduced far more compared to all the digital means because, like you said, I today sitting at Bangalore, I don't know if my content is getting consumed in some part of US or in some part of Jammu and Kashmir or down south. So, and that is, it is actually perplexing to see that all of a sudden you have somebody walking to one of your schools, and it is a real story that one of my principals actually shared with me yesterday. Is that one lady from Jharkhand who is herself a principal in an international school there, runs a school. Her husband is a hotelier and filthy rich people. She moved to Bangalore just to get her son educated, a 5-year-old son educated at one of our preschools. And when we tried to understand why is it that it happened, she said, I browsed your website, I browsed through all your social media channels, and the posts and the kind of activities, the kind of involvement, the kind of parent testimonials, the kind of things people do, have said about you is something that pushed me that, I think for my child, this is the best school. Now, as a mother, I salute her, but at the same point of time, I feel had it not been for technology, had it not been for the content on the social media, this particular parent would not have taken that kind of a step. It would have been far from reality for anybody to even believe that a lady would move the entire base from Jharkhand to Bangalore just to get her son educated.
Yeah. Now, the question really would be how did she first come across Vidyashilp? Because that's where all the action has shifted and all the, brains are working on, okay, now, because did she find you on ChatGPT? Did she find you on Perplexity? Did she find you on Google? Where did she find you?
Interestingly, when we asked the lady as to how she found out the school, she said, I had given my 11-year-old son the job to find out a good school in Bangalore. And he did a research using all the chat GPTs and the perplexities and the Googles of the world. And that is how he found out the school. And that is when he showed it to her mother, saying, his mother saying, Mom, here is a school which I feel is a potential match. And that's how this.
That's mind blowing. 11-year-old doing that now.
11-year-old doing that. So I think technology, it's not only taken the entire generation by surprise. I think it has now even become the life and a normal routine for every single person. So if I have to today search for a good school, I think I would also see what my competitor schools are doing, maybe on a chat GPT or a perplexity, because that would probably give me the best of the insights better than a Google or better than any other search engine. So yeah, that is how it is changing very, very rapidly.
So what do you think the school has to get it right so that their, admissions and all are in place? Like, how do you get this right? What are the best practices that you think schools should have?
I personally believe that, in the K-12 school, what is very, very important is to have, again, 3 C's. One is clarity, the other is consistency, and the third is connection. Now, if I do not have these 3 C's, it's difficult for me to operate. Why do I say clarity? Clarity in terms of what we want to communicate to the parents has to be clear. And that is a very important process where right from the top management to the entire important stakeholders decide what is it that the parents need to hear from us, and what is it that they want to hear from us. And that is possible when there is a very important two-way communication between the school as an entity and parents as a very strong important stakeholder. If that is not there, you will not have clarity of thought. So clarity of thought in terms of what has to be communicated and how it has to be communicated is very important. That comes through this mutual interaction and a close connection. The second is basically the the clarity part of it, the consistency part of it. The consistency means at each of the touch points, the way I communicate has to be the same. So which means the way my website looks should be more or less the same, give the same kind of experience how my people in the school are picking up the phone and the phone is getting answered, how a parent is being responded to over the call, how is an email attended to, right? So all of these touch points at various stages, whether the child is yet to join the school and the parent is still exploring, or the child is still studying, or they've spent, let's say, 5 years in the school, irrespective of all these stages, it's very, very important that the messaging, the communication has the right kind of consistency. And then the connection part of it is very important. Connection in all ways, which means today's parent, if I talk from an admissions perspective, if you're not responding and if you're not fast enough, by the time you reach out to them, they probably would have landed up in another school. They have already done the school visit and they are on their way to take the first step towards admission in any other school. So the speed is very, very important. But at the same point of time, when I say connection, it is also to do with tech. It's also to do with how we basically respond to the parent, and how is there a heart to heart connection. While all these technology and gadgets and gizmos will always be in place, it will always be important to have that heart to heart connection with our parents. And that is why it is very important that these three C's, are taken care of. Very, very important part of it.
That's an amazing framework you've given. I don't think so anybody in K-12 has put together a simple structure like how you have done, because if you pick up any of these three C's, the amount of work you need to do under each one of it is enormous. But to have that clarity of thought the way you've given is awesome. I think, Abhishek, this is the highlight of this podcast. If somebody had to take home anything, it is the framework you've just given. Now, to build on this, you and Suma also mentioned how adoption of good tech will help you in the three C's that you mentioned. One of them is obviously a platform to reach out to the parents or communicate the content so that you know who's reading, you know who's talking about you, you know who comes, and when they come on board to talk to you, how you gather data and store data. And typically a CRM tool is something that is the at the center of all of this, and it's the heart, the beating heart of your tech ecosystem. Now, what would be your advice? Because you've been through this journey, so I want to know more about your personal journey with the CRM tools, how you select, but also your advice to others on some might be using a tool. If they have to switch over, what should they do? If they have to find more value in what they're getting, what should they do? If you could elaborate more on that, it'll be amazing for the audience.
Sure, Adarsh. I think what has happened over the years is that we moved from the Excel age, spreadsheet age, to CRMs that were basically very, very simple to use. But over the years, when the complexities of how we basically do marketing and sales together, we required a more sophisticated platform because we wanted data to be analyzed. We wanted how many leads are coming, what is the cost per lead, and how is it that a particular campaign is running, and which campaigns, for example, out of the two are giving more number of leads, but which one is with a better ROI. All of these, when all of these came into picture, it became really important that better CRMs actually came in the marketplace. My experience with CRM started way back in, at the entry of my career, when I started using Finacle, which was basically a banking software. But those were banking softwares, and it not give me any particular insight in terms of, how am I actually doing as a individual contributor or resource. But the age of CRMs actually got introduced me around 12 years back when I entered actually in the CRM, in the education space, where it actually felt that, it I was all along the way humming a song, but it was not coming to my mind as to what song I wanted to actually play, because coming from a spreadsheet age, getting introduced to a CRM which was easy to use, which was easy to navigate. It was helping me solve my basic problems, giving me insights, but at the same point of time, also making me, work more efficiently, schedule calls, schedule meetings, all of it basically made the life, better. So I started realizing that probably I was using a butter knife, and all of a sudden somebody gave me a Swiss knife. I could navigate and do it much better. And that's how I would give an analogy actually. So a correct CRM for any admissions team, whether it is in a pre-K-12 or a K-12 space, or even in the higher education domain, would be the one which is basically solving their problem on a daily basis rather than creating more problems. I have seen CRMs which basically get introduced to educational entities, and the resources that are using it, either they are not trained properly, or they don't know the features which are there available. And worst of it, basically it still allows them to work on the Excel.
Correct.
So my red flag to any educational entity is that if your current team has switched to Excel sheets again, it's the time that you have to basically change the CR.
Yeah.
You better evaluate, because then it is not helping you win leads. It is not helping you service your clients properly.
And that's a great feedback. I think it's not just a feedback to K-12, but also a lot of CRM vendors out there in the market. We at HubSpot also have been very consciously aware of the pulse of the market and the future. So what we do is we are leaping ahead with smart CRM. Basically, now with AI coming in and content being so fragmented and unstructured also, you need a tool which becomes your best friend, be it for revenue generation, cost optimization, operation efficiencies. This is a tool that will work in all directions for you positively. And you got to keep it simpler. Like you said, what's the point of having a sophisticated tool if you don't use it? So you got to keep the UI easy, make the users feel it's their strength rather than a cumbersome activity. And then the insights that it drives should lead into magnifying your abilities to reach people, convince people to come on board, join your family. So amazing. We are living in very exciting times when it comes to innovation and
Absolutely.
tech adoption, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Abhishek, I wanted to ask if you were a standalone school and if you were a network of schools, would you look at CRM adoption differently? Are there some things to think about when you do that?
I think it's a very, very valid question, because uh, if I am a standalone school, I will have a different set of requirements. Whereas if I have expanded and have grown into an entity which has, let's say, 30, 40, 100 schools, I will have a completely different requirement. The requirements obviously would be from how I design my processes for admission and marketing, and the kind of basically use on a daily basis, and also the financial aspect of it. So I personally believe that a standalone school which has limited requirements and has a very, very standard set process, which is not dynamic, which is a plain vanilla simple process for the parents to come and fill an online inquiry form and the lead gets generated. For such schools, I think what is important is that they choose or introduce a CRM if the team is currently not on the CRM, which can basically understand how the process is designed, what kind of data is actually utilized by the team, the data consumption that is done on a daily basis, and then how is it that it can basically marry the marketing side of it, so that the leads can flow into it, and I would say the sales team, the admissions team, the counseling team is able to utilize it on a daily basis. Some kind of basic reports that could come out of it is something that would be appreciated, because right from the management's perspective to, person using at the very start of it, very front of it, would be able to understand what is it that they are doing right, what is it that they could do better. And end of the year when they are evaluating, they know the ROI, they know how much of it has actually gone down the drain and how much of it can be saved next year. So that's a critical decision to be made. So budget optimization is something that can be done for the next year. I personally believe that CRMs play a vital role in terms of planning for the future as well, because after my admission season is over, what do? I basically sit at the data and see where is it that I could have done better, where is it that I could have saved a few penny.
Right.
and maybe utilized it in some other channel as well, which could have potentially generated more leads for me. So I think that is what would be critical for a standalone or a school which has, let's say, 3 or 4 schools. But as and when you grow, the processes become more complex, the requirements become more complex. If you're a chain of school, you will have a completely different process. While you would want to make it easy for the parents and for your team, you would also want to introduce a lot more steps that are more important for you as a educational entity, as a stakeholder in the business, where you can get the real time data.
Hmm.
And that's where I think you were mentioning that you have introduced smart CRMs. I think a smart CRM is what would be needed for a large group of school, which can help people take decisions on the go and not basically do a post-mortem after the admission season has got over. So by that time, you would have also lost not only the revenue, but the precious parents who could probably have been a part of the fraternity. So that's what I would say is important from, you know, size perspective.
Representing a tech group within an education institution as big as yours, I'm sure while it's the driving force and it's at the tip of the spear for the growth perspective, like you rightly said, budget optimization and planning for future are key elements. The ownership of that falls on somebody like you who's literally heading that division. What are the things that you feel as red flags when you take all of these learnings in the mid of those non-peak periods when you're looking at postmortems or planning or correcting your mistakes and looking for future opportunities? So from looking back to looking future, the entire life cycle of that, when you make a proposal, what are the things that you face as red flags when you try to convince somebody who's making the decisions for you?
Making a decisions in terms of,
Giving you a go ahead with budgets, giving you a go ahead with market reach, giving you a go ahead to having innovative products, doing big changes.
I think the red flags at times are very, very obvious, but we kind of try to ignore them. When we are looking at a CRM, or any technology tool that is going to support, what is critical is that we don't only look at what benefits is it giving me, but at the same point of time, what is it that it is actually trying to solve is very, very important, because what it is trying to solve today might not be my problem tomorrow. And what is very, very important is that at my level, I try to evaluate, is this tool going to solve my problem, 5 years down the line? Can it solve? And because the problems might not come and tell me that I am coming, it's important that the CRM is actually scalable, and CRM also has the inbuilt system to adapt to the new changes, and that there are enough and more customizations that could be done with the changing requirements of the business. When I see that a system is not able to do that, is a very important red flag for me, and I potentially would not be able to take that ahead. So my entire decision in terms of going ahead with any of the CRM platforms or any of the technology tools is that yes, it is going to solve me a certain set of problems today, but how can it basically solve my problems in the future, and is it basically scalable? Very, very important.
How does the organization get ready for this? What does it need? What do they need to do to get ready for this adoption?
I think tech adoption has never been easy. It has always been challenging because the resistance to change is always there. And I think it is more than the change itself. The resistance is a bigger problem. People do not realize that change is always for good. And most of the times the change happens, it actually brings out the best from the organizations, from the people, from the nations. But what's critical is that the resistance is a bigger factor. So first things first, I think whenever such decisions are made, it's also important that the key stakeholders, which is basically the end users who are going to use it, are also taken into account in terms of the decision making process. Unless the buy-in has happened, it just feels like somebody is putting something down your throat and you're not ready for it. Absolutely. So one important aspect is that there has to be a buy-in from the important stakeholders, which is the end users. The second important aspect is that yes, there is a process called as management, and that also obviously starts from the top. But at the same point of time, it has to be driven both ways. It has to start from the top, but at the same point of time, somebody has to be there who initiates that change right from the bottom as well. And I think people like us, basically do that because we are the intermediaries between the people who are right in the front of the technology, using it firsthand, and also the people who are giving a go ahead in terms of
Yeah.
the change management. So it becomes very, very important that the message and the communication seeps through properly. That is another critical aspect. And I think it's also important that people are given that confidence, and the confidence comes with one, not from one time training. The training has to be an ongoing process. That's very, very important, because you cannot train somebody once and expect that they would know all the features of a particular tool completely and in its entirety.
Yeah.
So while the change management would be driven from the top, there has to be somebody leading it from the bottom. Change has to be accepted. And the third is obviously there has to be greater amount of training. That is very, very critical.
Goes back to what you started the podcast with, being a student at all times of our lives. How crucial is your team for you at Vidyashilp at this moment? I don't know how many people are in your team, but how does that help you, that team and the dynamics of the team, help you in your quest to be at the forefront of tech and digital adoption?
Others, I think team is everything. That's very, very important, because end of the day, it's not one person that can drive the change. If it is tech adoption, or if it is larger goals that we want to achieve, it is all because of the people that work with you and the people who work around you. So it's not only the people that I lead, but the people who lead me, because the vision has to be trickled down, and then we take it down to the people at the front and make them realize that this is a part of the larger goal that we want to achieve, and their contribution is very, very important. So I feel that the team currently that I drive is somebody which was earlier not ready to accept change, eventually understood that they would be left out because the technology is changing, faster than the adoption rate. By the time a technology comes in and it is 100% adopted, it becomes kind of outdated. A newer version of a better product has already come in the market, and more people and enough people are actually going and vouching for that particular technology. So I think what the team has realized is that this change is actually good for them. And that acceptance has actually given me a lot of confidence that within the organization, we can actually try and become an AI first organization as well. That is what my dream for the group is, that we become an AI first organization where technology can take care of the repetitive tasks. The technology can take care of all the monotonous things, and it becomes an assistant which does not get tired, which doesn't ask for any kind of breaks, but still does all the hard work that is actually loading, that is required. And very, very important is that I would want my team to actually adopt technology, but at the same point of time do what they are supposed to do, which is basically have a heart to heart connection. The conversation, the connect part of it is what I mentioned, the connection part of it. While technology does the hard work, people do what they're supposed to do, which is talking to the people and connecting with people.
That is awesome. And what a beautiful segue you've given us to probe more into the AI adoption, isn't it, Suma?
Yes.
No podcast these days go without we dwelling deeper into AI. But to be honest, 4 5 months ago, people were asking, will AI take away our jobs? Now people are aware that AI will take away the boring part of your jobs. It
Absolutely.
will take away jobs. If you're doing 100% of your job is boring, it will take away your job. The redundant, there are some times in your career you're sitting and doing something, and the bigger philosophical question of what am I doing, who am I comes in because you're tired of doing the same thing again and again. I think AI has come to solve that philosophical question in our lives, and it'll take away those things. I feel so. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a very valid point you raised, Adarsh, that we are in that age where technology adoption is happening at a very fast rate. And now that AI has come, it has changed lives of the people and how we basically operated. But what's critical is to understand that while in the business that we are in the K-12 space, we are here to nurture the students, bring the best out of them, prepare them for the next century, make sure that they are compassionate, they are confident, and they have all the creativity of the world. While technology will help them learn better, give it more personalized touch as far as the learnings are concerned, and give them more data driven results and assessments which the parents could actually use it at their place. The human side of it will never cease to exist. More people basically feel that it is important to get the technology, but at the same point in time, there's a fear that the human touch would be lost. I personally feel that getting introduced to in 2011, when I got introduced to an organization which was working in the adaptive tests and machine learning,
Mm.
I have seen it in the 15 years as to how AI has actually, got to the current space that it is at this point of time. And just to share with you that the organization that I was working with used AI and the machine learning to design a computer adaptive test, the IRT theory that we call, all of it was in place, but the organization was not using any CRM. We were still, working on Excels to maintain our databases as to what different, institutions and the corporates were actually telling us and sharing us. So from that place to a place where I think each and every organization is utilizing AI and the adoption rate is increasing, I believe that that will continue to happen. But at the same point of time, the human touch, the human connect that is there, that is not something that's going to change, especially in the space that we operate. That's the place which will continue to be there, and the human side of it will not change. The teachers are going to teach. No technology would replace the teachers, because while it can aid, it cannot replace the teachers. There would be assessments that would happen. It can be AI driven assessments. The report cards would be seamless. The feedbacks would be I would say right in the right at that moment is when it would be given. But at the same point of time, the connect, the constant touch that is there in the education space would not grow basically.
I have a comment on this. Yesterday, I was reading some report by alongside mental health. What they do is they have AI chats which allow school students to actually have conversations, bring up issues that they normally would not bring up with their therapists or maybe their parents or teachers. And the top two topics that came up in that list one was that they felt that they were unable to balance their school with all the other extracurricular activities that they were doing. So they were feeling overwhelmed because of that, which is quite similar to all of us, okay? How we are balancing our lives is
Yeah.
they are facing it much earlier. And the second one was that sleeplessness. And I think, again, something that adults are facing, they are only surviving on 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and poor teenagers are also facing that. So AI being able to bring out that information to us is so valuable to schools and to parents to realize that, we need to change something here. So that was a
Absolutely.
very interesting report that I found and found it very, very interesting. I have a question for you, Adarsh. So he's talking about AI and the how the CRMs are working. So in recent times, HubSpot has launched integrations with ChatGPT and Claude also
Yeah.
recently. How is that working out? What's that like?
It's an amazing opportunity for all of HubSpot's ecosystem and users, right? Suddenly, you don't have to really be overwhelmed with what should I do with all this AI being thrown at me, and where and how's that has been solved. So what we are trying to do is keep it very simple for our users. So they're in HubSpot and they can do everything that's allowed within the AI world through HubSpot itself. So your ability to, or probably the limitation sometimes you feel, and the overwhelmness, right? That's taken away. Now you can drive a deep research in HubSpot. You can help you to come out with the best of the proposals you would have probably written, all staying within the HubSpot place and instance. So I think it's early days though. but we are so thrilled with what is happening. And I think in inbound in the next month, we will see a lot of announcements which will propel our smart CRM to something at another level altogether. I'm so excited for our customers, our potential customers, our partners, we as employees. We're thrilled by the leap that we are doing in AI. And I think it was a choice. It was a choice for us to either be left behind as a big elephant or continue to be agile and that startup culture that HubSpot has and leap ahead on the innovation and the rapidness of innovation that's coming our way. It's a revolution. Nobody is now denying it's probably the biggest revolution in our lifetimes.
Correct.
We felt
Agree.
I think the
We saw
three
it
of us have
firsthand.
lived through these big revolutions, starting from internet. We have lived non-internet days also. Of course, we enjoyed it. Yeah, and then
The
we've
phone,
lived through.
smartphone, the smartphone.
Yeah, exactly. The
Point.
mobile revolution, right? And now this one. I think this is the biggest of all, and it'll change the way we live our lives. The efficiency levels are different. It's democratized, so everybody has an access to it. Smallest of the small companies can now build products that can probably make them billionaires in no time. So
Yeah.
it's an amazing world that we are going to see in the front. And I think it'll help everybody across industries, societies,
Agree.
especially the needy ones. I think it'll bring in people closer. It'll bring in philanthropies and the people who need certain things and didn't have access will now have the access to what will solve their core issues and problems they're facing. So I'm excited for the society. It comes with its like good old days. We could sleep 8 hours as students. What someone just said, it's now becoming a norm that our kids are pressurized. They're seeing the adult life right now in their childhood, but it is what it is.
But yeah, schools have the actually now the differentiators will be built on these challenges, right? More than anything else. So yeah.
I completely agree. I think schools, the faster they adopt the changes, and especially the AI adoption part of it, I believe it would revolutionize the way the entire education industry across the globe is operating currently. Uh, when COVID hit, the pandemic hit, people realized that probably they would do away with the teachers because technology, it's all online, and all digital resources, no copy pen assessments, it is all online assessments. Probably teachers would go, but did it happen? It did not, because
Yeah.
it happened for good, it happened for a purpose. And I still believe the goodness of the technology rather than focusing on what bad it can bring. I'm sure there are enough and more people trying to find out what bad it can do. And I think for people like us who are end of the day consumers of technology, we just focus on the goodness of it and adapt and adopt the best side of the product that comes.
Excellent. That's a lovely thought. So, what are you looking forward to now, Abhishek? What are you most excited about, and what keeps you awake at night? What keeps you anxious?
I think, Suma, I'm very excited about the way education as an industry has changed. That was obviously the question that we started with. But I feel the way education has changed over the years, and also the way technology is supporting, in getting it elevated to the next level. That's very, very important. I believe technology adoption in the education space will propel it to the next level altogether. It would now become more accessible to people. While we understood and we have seen that with the advent of edtech companies, it became more accessible, both from, if I live in a remote place, and also if I cannot afford so much of a pricey product. It worked out well for them, but I feel that there was still lot of a larger piece of the audience that was left out. And I think this revolution, which is the AI revolution side of it, is something that would basically make it even more accessible for people. So that's very, very critical. I think the other day I was reading that Perplexity's annual plan has basically become more or less free for everyone who is using a certain plan. If that can happen. I was just imagining if people could actually use it for the better purpose. If people in the educational space can actually make use of, I would say, platforms like Perplexity for a better purpose. That's something that is the real adoption. And I think what makes me nervous is the rate at which technology is coming, is getting adopted, but at the pace at which new technologies are getting introduced. And I would specifically talk from a educational entity perspective, because anyway the adoption rate in the educational space was not very high always. Most of the people had already taken or were already using digital marketing right from 2010-11 onwards, but educational space started using it much later. Same was the case with the platforms that were used for digital and the flipped classroom learning. The same is the case with AI as well. But I'm thinking that what else would come in terms of AI? We never knew AI would be something that would come and revolutionize the world in such a big way. It would basically topple everything and make sure that human race was left thinking about how we could compete with the technology to, start becoming better. My worry is that the technology should not outspace the human race. And it should not so happen that people start losing out the very basics of the human foundation, which is basically the care, the love part of it, the tenderness part of it,
The
and
empathy.
the empathy part of it, because that is the core foundation. So technology should be adopted and people should be ready for it, but at the same point of time, these are the things which are non-negotiable.
What a beautiful final thought there, Abhishek. And I think
Totally.
the audience would love this podcast by a couple of things that you've left us to ponder. One was a brilliant framework you gave for the K-12 fellow colleagues and peers of you. The second part is the philosophical side of life that you're leaving us with. I think adoption of technology is no longer an option going forward, and to do so in order to improve ourselves, our organizations, to drive revenue, to drive success, all that, we shouldn't forget what we are at the core of ourselves, right, as a human race. So what a beautiful final thought. Thank you, Abhishek. Thanks for taking us through your experience, your current goals, your current engagements, your future aspirations, and the amount of brilliant work you and your team are doing at Vidyashilp. Got to know about so much today in this podcast. So thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you,
It was
Adarsh. Thank you, Suma. I really feel excited that I was a part of this podcast and I got to speak to you people, and I was able to share my journey as well as the experiences that I had in this education space. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Abhishek. It was so lovely to have you here with us.